I'm Stella Zhukovsky, the Director of Quality and Workforce Development at National Day Nurseries Association. We've been working with employers in childcare settings to look at their practice examples and their approach to providing for adequate paediatric first aid provision within nursery. We've come to the old schoolhouse nursery to bring some of the good practice that we've found to life. This particular nursery has taken some great practical steps to assess the confidence of staff to be able to act swiftly and calmly in emergency situations. Let's take a look.
I'm Linda Bassett-Pitt. I run the Old Schoolhouse Day Nursery, which has been here for now 21 years. We are in a converted Victorian school, which has gradually evolved and developed as the nursery's grown in numbers, because we now have 100 children on a daily basis. And on the roll in total, nearly 200 children and families. We're also a training centre, so we have lots of students on a full and part-time basis. Some of them are paediatric students from Addenbrooke's, and also some students, apprentices as well. We have a staff team of 30, which includes cook, cleaners and our bank staff. 90% of the staff are paediatric first trained, and we always try to work on almost 100%, but the reality is it's always 90% of staff that are trained. The nursery is split into three main areas: babies, toddlers and schoolroom, across the whole of the nursery. All of the rooms interconnect, and we have two stairways so that children can access rooms from different areas.
You talked a little bit about the layout of your setting, Linda. Can you tell me how many staff you have that are qualified in paediatric first aid to manage the layout of the nursery?
Well, because our target is to have 90% of the staff qualified in paediatric first aid, it makes it much easier to deploy staff throughout nurseries. It means in every area of nursery, it doesn't matter whether it's the baby room or the school room, there is always a paediatric first aid qualified member of staff.
Tell me what methodology you use for planning.
It includes evaluation not only of the workplace but also of the workforce and hazards and risks present. And this can be anything from the layout of nursery. We're very careful in how we plan and structure activities within nursery. So all of the rooms are open plan, which means that children are visible at all times. We have things like vision panels in the doors, we have vision windows between rooms. Because all of the staff, or 90% of the staff, are qualified, there's always a first aider in each area of nursery if there is an incident. We have intercom phone systems that connect the rooms at all times that are always tested, and all staff have access to free flow outdoor space, which is also managed.
So tell us, Linda, how do you plan for a sufficient paediatric first aid within your activities? You've got a fantastic forest school area, an outdoor play area there.
Yeah, I mean, staff plan the daily routines to meet the needs of the children, and they're planned so that every member of staff and each key person has a clear understanding of the role and responsibilities. For example, in the forest school, we would have a higher staff ratio with the children. So instead of a 1:8, we'd possibly have a 1:4. The balance of staff experience is really crucial. So we make sure that we have experienced staff that are with the children balanced with junior and also students. All of the staff that are out there will always be first aid trained, and they will have access, direct access to first aid equipment when they're there. If we have children, with special medical needs, for example, we have a little girl with diabetes, that child's key person will be with her if she's playing outdoors, and will monitor her very closely, but also will be liaising with the nursery manager at the same time. Risk and challenge we see as an important part of child development, and staff training ensures that staff have a real understanding, and through supervisions staff understand about the more risky activities and make sure that it's age appropriate, whether it's babies that are outdoors or older children outdoors. They will think through and make sure that they fully support children.
Linda, some settings struggle to manage to fund training. How do you manage your budgets to fund paediatric first aid training?
We have an annual training budget, and first aid comes into that budget. We record all staff training dates on an admin system, so it highlights the need for renewal of paediatric first aid on a rolling basis. Training is always done outside of nursery on a Saturday or on an evening, so that ensures that all staff can attend, and we use our NDNA network to share the cost of training. So it means that we can have 12 practitioners attending training, so we will prioritise the places for our staff and fill up the spaces with other practitioners. This really helps staff share practice with other practitioners. And also we bring in at the same time, and depending on individual medical needs, extra and additional training support. So things like use of an EpiPen. We've got a little baby that has epilepsy, so we bring in extra specialists to enable staff to clearly write individual care plans that are put together with parents and other professionals.
How do you manage individual staff confidences?
Well, through all of the methods that we use, and especially through assessment and observation, we're able to really identify not just group needs but individual needs, so that we can take a member of staff to one side and through a supervision really look at and discuss with them any particular fears or anxieties they have about a particular area of first aid, so that we can really support them on a one-to-one basis and boost their confidence.
Linda, you've got some really interesting approaches here. Can we take a look?
Yes, you can.
Charlie's eating a piece of apple, Nicole, and he's choking on it. Rachel, can you help? Charlie, are you able to cough for me? Can you just check if this piece of apple comes out? He's choking on it.
No. Yes.
Charlie, are you okay? Yeah?
That looked intense, Nicole. Can you tell us a little bit about the paediatric first aid training that you've had?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to take part in the paediatric first aid training in my induction process when I joined nursery, which definitely gave me more confidence in my practice. I learned about different areas such as what happens when a child's choking, how to deal with any bleeds, whether they're minor or serious, CPR, different things like that, etc.
Have you had to apply any of the techniques that you learned as part of your paediatric first aid?
I have, yes. I had a child fall over and bang his head on the pavement. Everyone was in the garden at the time, so it meant I had to inform another member of staff of where I was going with the child. I then took them inside. Another member of staff came with me just as additional support. The other children were therefore supervised by the rest of my team members. We then got a wet compress and applied it to the child's head and kept removing this and monitoring whether the bump had changed. Once we dealt with the child, we comforted them a lot. They then went and sat with the other members of staff, still back with the other children, but just to be monitored a bit more carefully. Filled in the accident book, which is obviously important. We then inform the parents of what has happened, and if the situation worsens, we then give them a copy of the accident book so that they can take this to hospital if the child needs to go. Most times it's not that major.
I've seen a little bit of you already in action, but can you tell me a little bit more about the live training that you have on an ongoing basis?
At the old schoolhouse, we make sure that every member of staff is up to date over 3 years. We also do live simulations, which my manager will come into a room and ask a member of staff, a child has banged their head, what are you going to do? It puts the member of staff on their feet straight away, which is obviously what happens in an emergency situation, so it allows us to refresh on our practice. It also means that we can reflect and deal with the situation and say what went well, what didn't go well, and how can we improve this.
So with the ongoing training that you receive at the old schoolhouse, how confident do you feel now?
I feel very confident in my first aid practice. The simulations have really helped me develop my skills. I now feel that if I had to deal with situations like a convulsion that happens very rarely, that I would know exactly what to do.
You've seen some absolutely excellent practice today here at the Old Schoolhouse Nursery. What can others take away from this?
Well, I think there's a number of things really. First of all, talking to Linda and hearing her talk about the structure of their training, I think it's fantastic that she's not just looking at the minimum number of paediatric first aiders she needs, but she's actually taking into account things such as the children with medical issues, which actually needs higher ratios, and some of the activities such as what they do with the forest schools that again needs higher ratios. And that her goal, although not always achievable, is to aim towards 100%. So she hits that minimum benchmark for her of 90% trained in paediatric first aid, and that's excellent to train so you've got enough staff covering all areas at all times. And I think for the everyday, day-to-day things, the simulations we've seen that Nicole did earlier today, absolutely fantastic, as well as the ongoing checks, drills, one-to-one supervisions with staff, etc. I know that there's a real difference when you're doing a simulation and you've got a rather solid mannequin compared to a real life child that actually moves in different ways. But it's just putting those staff under that stress and pressure, that it's not just 3 years from one course till they update again, but that they've used those skills in between, so in a real life emergency they're at their fingertips. And I think that is really the key things, but it's just part of the everyday ethos of this site to do first aid in such a way. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you, Helen.